Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids, and in today's episode we're going to be talking all about Bannerlords. We did about a 2-hour video earlier today progressing on it, and I didn't manage to take it down in that video, but I have taken it down now. Stage 21, the final stage, my first stage 21 boss on the live game for Faction Wars Hard. It's certainly not accessible, but I will break down not only this stage 21, but more importantly, I want to give you a broad overview of the faction. We've got a lot of this stuff here on hellhades.com, where we've given you a bit of a blurb on the faction, some strengths and weaknesses, some MVPs. We'll take a quick gander here at the tier list as well and talk about some of the things that were striking to me about it. And yeah, a few surprise champions that really impressed me. Really impressed me. As you can see, by the way, here, we'll just talk through the stage 21 and the team that I ended up using. We have an epic in here. That's right. She is a void epic, but an epic champion makes it in, and I think is actually a must build for this faction. And then Baron's the big MVP, because as you can see, Baron does that. It's been one of the biggest things for me about Faction Wars Hard. These waves are so ridiculously difficult. Having a champion who can just, when you run into a problem champion or a problem wave, having a champion like Baron, like Seer, anyone of that caliber that can just say, that champion's dead. Eilil for the Sylvan Watchers has been a huge one for us as well. Anyone that can just kill an enemy champion just like that. In this case with Baron, he kills a whole wave. Well, not quite like that. We had to do some work. We had to make sure we had Ursula with the increased attack, for example. We had to up his speed substantially for this final wave. He had to be over 250 speed, I think, or around about there, close enough. He has to be pretty fast to outspeed these waves. But yeah, being able to just delete an enemy wave makes life so much easier. So yeah, Baron is absolutely, he's the surprise MVP for me for the faction. Now here we can see we're using Androck. Unfortunately, we used Androck for wave 2. We had to deal with that test. In fact, let's rewind it a bit so we can see. So you can see what I'm talking about here. Where were we? So we got to, yeah. So we come to this wave 2. I used Androck. His buffs gave Baron more damage for the first part, but landing Enfeeble, and this is not accessible. Enfeebling Tetsuya was massive, because how do we deal with this Tetsuya? He's very fast. He's immune to turn meter pushback. If we stun him, Jing 1 will remove the stun, give him block buffs. Very difficult to deal with. And, you know, if we say, oh, well, okay, we stun him, then we have another champion remove the buffs, and then we have another champion stun him again. Well, the problem is he's going to be gaining massive amounts of turn meter from his passive. It's very tough to deal with. These enemies are very fast, and you've got to get through wave 1 as well. You've got to get through the boss as well. It's certainly not easy. We did use Androck's form too, a mythical champion, to enfeeble. I think I was showing you the web page during part of that. But we had to redo this a few times. I redid this a few times in my final attempts here with Ursula. Because guess what? Androck's the wrong affinity for that wave too. For 3 of the enemies are magic and he's spirit. It's pretty bad. So Androck, it's not 100% clear. He's, you know, he must enfeeble Tetsuya. Otherwise Tetsuya is going to steal all your turn meter and true fear everyone. And you can't resist it. You're going to have a real bad time. Like a really bad time. We come to the boss, and this one is the blue boss. I think the blue boss is actually probably the second most difficult. The red boss might be a bit tricky as well, because it gains a ton of turn meter. I think the green boss is probably the easiest one for stage 21. So long as you've got a debuff removal or cleanse, you'll be fine. But we came to the boss, and yeah, we can see. So the strategy for this team, we're bringing lots of control with Androck and with Staltus, a damage dealer with AoE stuns for the waves. Baron to just delete. Again, a consistent theme throughout many of these Faction Wars Hard stages is a strong enough damage dealer. We also use, for example, Thor. Someone who can just delete a wave makes life so much easier, because instead of having to come up with all these complicated plans to counter specific champions and how do we deal with this wave and all the ridiculous effects that are in these high-level waves, if you can say, well, I just killed them all in one single hit, well, that solves all the problems in a very simple, straightforward way. So Baron's been the real MVP. We can see against this boss, it was pretty rough. It got pretty sketchy, but bringing in Ursula was a game changer. The epic She is bringing us in increased attack for Baron to help him do more damage. And if you're using other attack options, you need an increased attack champion. Ursula's a Void Epic who brings that. The AoE decreased attack is very nice as well. And she can also help you stay alive with her A3. She even does a bit of turn meter control. It's not too important with her A1, but it is there, which is nice. But yeah, you can see Baron is so good for this boss. We don't want to hit the minions. Well, Baron has a single target decreased defense. Guaranteed. He's got a single target big nuke that scales off buffs, and we're rocking quite a few. And then Sky Piercer, his big move, will trigger the boss counterattacks, but it hits so hard it's probably worth using in general. Like here we can see, bam, Sky Piercer, 439,000 damage. It's a huge chunk of damage. It's very powerful. So yeah, this was the team I used. Androck pumping out tons of healing. We've got the double revivers to keep us alive. I don't really think they're necessary. As you can see, very few people are dying. So for this stage, you might be saying, no, but I don't have Kaja. Well, I don't think you actually need Kaja. We could be doing this just fine without Kaja. We could have been running another damage dealer or something. We could have been doing something very different. But yeah, this is the team. You see, it does get a little close. It gets a little sketchy, but we're getting through massive damage. Look at that from Baron. Absolutely ginormous amounts of damage. Really huge. And we took him down. 100 turns. We're actually halfway. Yeah, so there we go. 100 turns. And by the way, we got a mythical skill tome. If I come over here, we did a relic. We got a legendary relic from this. What did we get? Wand of Submission. Ooh, feels good. So there we go. We took it down. Let me show you the builds for the end of Faction Wars Hard. Of course, for the end of Faction Wars Hard, we have the entire Great Hall maxed out. I think you will really need this. Some bosses you can resist, and this will help a ton. The accuracy requirements are very high. Let me actually bring those up as well. To do that, we'll come over here. We'll come to the Raid Stages tool. And we can search for Faction Wars. Alternatively, we could go to the bottom of the Faction War page. And we've written little guides. I do need to start updating these guides with the live stuff now that I've actually beaten this boss, for example. But we can see here the stats. Like, so for example, wave 1, right? Our base, the Stonethorn, is 319 speed. Elva is 313. You have to deal with that. Tetsuya, he's 281 speed. And Tetsuya, on his passive, guess what? He's gaining all this... where is it? Fills his turn meter by 15% whenever an enemy champion takes a turn. And then also turn meter effects are stronger. His team's immune to turn meter. He does more damage when his turn meter is filled. You know, this stuff is not easy to deal with. The boss itself is 325 speed, and it has 4.7 million HP. The boss has 16,000 defense. So yeah, and here you go. These are their accuracy resistance numbers. You need 455 accuracy to reliably debuff. You need 530 resistance to reliably resist. Yeah, so the Great Hall, needless to say, is going to have a huge impact for both your support stats, obviously the speed as well, and then your damage stats, the crit damage, the ignore defense, your attack, the survivability as well. All of this stuff is essential. To be honest, it really is essential. Let's take a look here at the Bannerlords faction. So for me, if we jump back up to the tier list and we talk through maybe from that context here. For me, I did not have Taris or Marishka or Aislinn. I think Sigmund maybe should go down a bit. He's great, but I think he probably deserves to go down. This is interesting. Baron absolutely stood for me head and shoulders above every other damage dealer. He is the best damage dealer for this, because yeah, again, just his ability. It's a long cooldown, but the ability to just kill an entire enemy wave just like that is glorious. That is insane. That we put him in some crazy gear for this final stage. Well, pretty crazy. 7,500 attack star. He needed 260 speed. 110% crit rate, 10% extra just for fun, and 335% crit damage. And again, the great thing about him for the boss, decreased defense is guaranteed, so it doesn't need accuracy, which is good, because he only has 170. We're certainly nowhere near the whatever 500-ish that we needed, or whatever it was. He only has a Malefic Talon relic. A better one would help. These were his masteries, but Baron is the out-and-out MVP for damage. Coming over here, Staltus. I think Staltus is only like S tier for damage. Maybe we need to put him down, but Staltus brings you some very solid control. Staltus is very reliable. We used him substantially. His damage is just not that crazy. I mean, if we come, for example, to the victory screen, like, oh, sorry, over here, we can see, whereas Baron did 6 million, Staltus did 2.3. So, yeah, I'm going to be suggesting we move Staltus down in the tier list. I think Taurus definitely stays up there. I think Taurus and Baron stand strong. Staltus, not quite so good for damage, but what he is good for is crowd control, right? AoE stun on a 3-turn cooldown is quite reliable as well. You can do the AoE decrease crit damage. We actually found that was very useful for surviving. And he can do decreased speed sometimes as well. He can push turn meter back on his A1. Very useful against the boss there. He's immune to stuff, which is really good. He does more damage for every debuff on the target. We found Staltus to be very nice. Not the best for damage, but good. These were his stats for me. Some of my best defense gear. It's just not as good as the attack gear. It's just tough because he needs some accuracy as well. He was a little bit low on the accuracy, actually. But yeah, Staltus was good. Could have been better, but he was good. But yeah, he's that lovely mix of damage and control. Now, someone who's also similar, Timid the Fool. I actually took Timid out. That was the key. I was trying to run Timid because I was running Kaja for the boss. And then I said, hey, why am I running this champion who's all about control when I'm getting stuck on the... or, trying to get through the waves, he was very helpful. But for the boss, he didn't really help. Timid, though, is excellent for waves. He can do pretty good damage, but he combos with Kaja, which is great. He kind of needs Kaja there. It's really nice. When his True Fear works, he then provokes enemies. So he can potentially lock down enemies for 2 turns, right? True Fear for 1 turn, then provoke them on the 2nd turn. That's on a 4-turn cooldown, but he gets an extra turn on his A2. So he's actually pumping out a lot of control and quite a bit of AoE damage as well. I built him mostly for control. I have him in stun set. We have him fast. He does have Helm Smasher, but probably if I was doing this again, I put him in Fearsome Presence. I'm not using him on stage 21, though, but he was key for other stages. So he sort of gets demoted there. But Timid stood out to me as a former fusion. Some of you might have him, and he can do some good damage. Other good options, if you don't have Baron, I think Quintus can perform a similar role. Now, for me, the problem, Quintus does not have a soul, and you need souls, really, for the bosses for these faction wars, especially the top stages. They give you tons of damage reduction. I rant about this every single time it comes up. I think it's awful, but it is the way it is. You need a big soul, because it's going to give you... You get up to 50% more damage. Like, it's just crazy. But yeah, Quintus could be very good, and he, like Baron, has a decreased defense and buff removal that can't be resisted or blocked. And he has a self buff and a big AoE nuke. And he's got a really strong single target nuke, so he could definitely sub in for you in place of Baron. I think he's probably not as good. He doesn't have the big oomph like a Sky Piercer, but he'd be a pretty strong supplement. And then obviously 2 login champions, Rathalos, Blademaster, and Rhonda, very strong as well. Rishtov is more like AoE poisons for waves. Not great against the boss. Sir Artemage is like your probably best epic option. He could maybe go down to A tier, to be honest. Like, their damage is fairly lacking, right? I feel like you either have the really good Void Legendaries that are crazy, or you're quite reliant on some of the free champions, and you cannot get Rhonda anymore. And Rathalos was free, but obviously not anymore either. So it's a bit tight in terms of damage at the high end, to be fair. Offensive support, who did we use here? We obviously used Androck a ton. He's also... I'd also be considering Androck in his base form. Where is his base form? That's his alternate form. Where's his base? It's not there. It's missing, I think. Yeah, he's just missing from the tier. Well, Androck in his base form should be up here. I personally be putting Sigmund down into S tier. Still phenomenal, but not quite that good. And I'd be putting Androck's base form into S tier. Androck's base form is amazing. There are alternatives. He's giving you tons of healing, increase resistance, strengthen, and then he extends your buffs and heals you, increase defense, lots of turn meter here. The dude's an absolute... He's a Chad. He's so strong. Some alternatives to Androck, which might surprise you. Yeah, there's actually quite a few alternatives in this faction. We didn't use them, but they could be very strong. I think Sethalia is a big one to call out here. She can remove all buffs from all enemies with lots of turn meter control. There's a single target burn on her A1, and then a massive heal with a cleanse, block debuffs, and an AoE heal, AoE turn meter boost. Sethalia, I think, is actually kind of a sleeper pick for Faction Wars Heart. Where have we put... We've put her in the S tier. Okay, so good. She's very strong. Personally, I was not a fan of Raglan, though I don't have any soul on her. I just found like Raglan, her revive is amazing, but her other 2 moves are extremely weak. for the modern game. As I mentioned, Ursula the Mourner, she is your MVP. We built her in a bolster set, was how we did Ursula. This is going to be a problem for farming this boss. I think we could get away with just regen, but bolster was nice. But yeah, getting her empowered, getting a blessing on her, massively ups her survivability. Again, you take, with a 6-star blessing, you take 25% less damage. Like, that doesn't sound like much, but it actually makes a huge difference. Now, she doesn't have a relic, which would also improve stuff. But Ursula was fantastic. And she's also bringing you the increased attack, which is something that, as we can see from the offensive support, they really lack. So for Quintus, Quintus self buffs, but for Baron, Rhonda, Rathalos Blademaster, their Artemage might self buff, I don't remember, but for a lot of these damage options, you actually are going to really want increased attack. She is probably the overall best way to do it. You can also do it with Ulfric, I think. He's okay. But yeah, Helmet and Stag Knight. I would personally be considering Helmet more control, actually. We did use Archmage Helmet a little bit for his AoE stuns. He also buffs up, which is good. He's a solid option. I didn't end up using him as much at all in Faction Wars Hardware, as he carried me for normal. Who else did we use in here? Stag Knight, we did use quite a bit. He's simple, but he's really good. Hey, we decrease defense, decrease attack, and then decrease speed A1s. He can even give you increased accuracy on people. He's just solid. You could put him in a shield set. It would be very helpful. Or a bolster set if you've got it, even better. But Stag Knight has massive potential for this faction. In fact, that was one thing that struck me when I looked. Hopefully we can see it. I don't know if I can. That's so annoying. It won't let me show it. But we did look on stream or on the video, and people were using Stag Knight for stage 21. Like, he's actually phenomenal. So he is well worth considering. Any other sleeper picks or undervalued things? I do think Sigmund is very solid. He brings you a nice mix of AoE provoke with decreased attack, the shield and the strengthen. Removing buffs is actually great on his passive and his A1 as well. That was very helpful. We used Sigmund a good bit. I didn't actually use Helior, but I could see Helior maybe being useful. Didn't use him myself. I didn't use Manaya, but again, she could be very helpful. If you don't have Kaja, she might even be better than Kaja. She's got the same aura, but she brings you a huge heal with block debuffs, and then can give a big shield. And then she's got heal reduction leech AoE, which is actually really good. Some continuous heals A1. I think that she could be a fantastic replacement for Kaja. I didn't mention Kaja. We ran her in a bolster set again. You could supplement this with regen. She heals herself on her A1. So between the bolster set healing and her A1, she's just super survivable. She brings you a cleanse, but it's only 2 debuffs, and it's only block debuffs for 1 turn. So it's on a shorter cooldown. It's got turn meter boost. She was useful, but if you don't run her with Timid, I think we could easily replace Kaja, probably with someone like Manaya. Possibly Sathalia could sub in there as well, especially if you're running Ursula, who's bringing the revive if you need it. So that is worth considering, I would say. We used Lady Annabelle for a few stages. AoE Leech, decrease speed. Increase speed for your team. Simple. She's pretty decent. Now, one sleeper pick, or not sleeper pick, one essential pick, unfortunately, was Risk Harm. One of the worst stages. You have to kill enemies with counterattack or ally attack, and there's no ally attack. So, yeah, counterattack on a target ally. That would probably help. Anything else to watch out for? I don't have Killian, but Killian very strong for AoE wave control. Lugan not bad either. The block active skills could be very helpful, and you could place that on, for example, yeah, these block active skill champions. They could be very helpful for the Jingwan stages, right? Because Jingwan, block active skills. Now he's the wrong affinity. Killian would be better, but block active skills that doesn't trigger Jingwan's passive, and it just is going to stop them from doing their moves. So a fast Lugan or a fast Killian could actually be insane. Maybe even Killian goes into SS control. I don't know. I'd have to look. I don't have him. Irish Pride is sad, but there you go. Yeah, that's a lot of it. Anyone down here that we used? Not too much. Again, you've got some budget options you could try and make work, but it gets a bit tough. Yeah, like I said, Risk Harm for one of the trials, but he's pretty rubbish. I didn't use him apart from that. It is a fairly limited faction. This is one of the harder factions, and some of the conditions are very tough. Yeah, I think we summed it up here very well, which is they've got a lot of great options. They have a lot of really solid champions, but they very few like absolutely outstanding ones. I think the obvious exception are Taris and Marishka. If you've got those, and if you've got Androck, then sure. Now Baron is pretty exceptional. Then they've got a lot of like S tier champs. I feel like they've got a very big wide range of S tier champs, you know, like Kaja, Ursula. You're like, oh yeah, they're really, really good. Are they like absolutely bonkers though? No, they're not absolutely bonkers. They're just really, really good. I think that's my sort of vibe. Same thing with Rhonda. Same thing with Quintus, Rathalos. A lot of these champs. I'd even probably say the same thing about Staltus, to be honest. Um, they're not like, oh my god, this champion is so OP. They are hard carrying this faction. It's just like, no, no, no. They're really, really good. Yeah, for me, I felt the hard carries were Androck, both of his forms, and Baron. Now, one thing, of course, so you don't get too upset with Androck specifically, I thought he'd be brilliant for, you know, if we can't control the waves, this Enfeeble will keep us alive. And you guys didn't see it unless you watched the previous video, but against this, oh no, it's not in this floor, but one of the waves we fight against a Narses, right? Ancora Narses. I was like, well, we can Enfeeble the Narses. We'll be fine. Narses hit us for 20k twice through shields. That was the stage where you couldn't drop below 75% HP. So needless to say, Narses enfeebled on stage 20, one-shot Baron. So the enfeeble from Androck is good. It stops them placing debuffs. Crucial against Tetsuya. You'd have to use block active skills to be your alternative. But it's the enfeeble actually doesn't prevent much a ton of damage coming through. And the enemies typically don't crit either. So it's not that massive. It's certainly lower damage, but it's not crazy. It's more about stopping the crowd control and the effects that they're putting out. But yeah, there you go. I do think, yeah, from the factions I cleared on the test server and what I've done so far, I do think Bannerlords is one of the more difficult ones. That being said, of course, I fully cleared it, but I've got the frickin' mythical, man. I've got the frickin' mythical, and I thought this was a very difficult faction. Yeah, I think it's very difficult. Like I said, you've got lots of decent options, but very few outstanding ones. And that really has an impact when the content is as hard as Faction Wars hard. There you go. Let me know any tips you have. Let me know any of your MVPs. As I said, for me, Baron was the big surprise that I was like, this guy is making a ridiculous difference. Yeah, absolutely huge difference. And any champ like him for any faction is insane. Then a core reviver. In this case, I used 2. Yeah, but like I said, Ursula is the more important one. Believe it or not, she's more important because of the decreased attack. But you need very good gear because she's got terrible base defense. So keeping her alive is tough. You're going to need real... Like, I had her 6-star +4, and you saw on the run, she almost died. And that's being protected by Androck. Like, it's not easy. So there you go. That's yeah, that's how I beat it. Yeah, let me know your tips for Bannerlords. But this is hard. This is hard. It's not an easy faction. At least Quintus is guaranteed. I think he could have lots of potential. But like I said, you need a soul for the guy. Like, honestly, against a stage 21 boss, bringing in a champion with no soul, just don't do it. My honest advice, just don't bother. Kaja without the soul, that was, you know, she stayed alive, but look how ridiculously tanky she is. And she's self-healing every single turn. Like, so yeah, stuff. Guys, that's it. Thank you for watching. Hopefully it was helpful. I'm delighted to have beaten it. And yeah, there we go again. The end screen for this, so you can see the final stats. Yeah, as you can see, Androck, tons of healing. Ursula for the utility. Kasha for the cleansing and the revive. As I said, she's actually quite replaceable. But she is very good with Timid for the wave stages. But you could definitely replace her here. Baron, the big MVP. And Androck's difficult to replace. Stealth is just nice for the waves. Probably ultimately replaceable as well. But there we are. That's how we did it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.